Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another Tuesday discussion. Here on Tuesdays, we do respond to questions and comments we get either on YouTube, Instagram, or from our wonderful Patreon community. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, support the content that we create, and get in on some other fun stuff we do each and every week, check out the link in the description. Also getting ready here to start releasing barrel picks. Ooh, that's going to be fun. Now, with this conversation here, 2024, I have called a few times the year of the rye. I've heard other channels call it this as well. I've heard Cam say this over at Drums and Drams. I've heard the Bourbon Junkies call it the year of the rye too. Totally curious what their rationale is to call it the year of the rye, but I got called out to explain why I think it's the year of the rye, so I'm going to give my points in this video. So if you haven't given rye whiskey a chance yet, 2024 is the year to do it and to expand your palate. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. So the reason that I am highlighting the rye whiskeys so far in 2024 is that right now, as of recording, there is a rye whiskey and or a Boo Rye blend taking up half of the spots in my top 10 of 2024 thus far. Thus, for me, the year of the rye. It's not just because I'm saying it, it's because I keep scoring ryes so high and ryes from so many different distilleries. That plays into the story. So let me pull up the slides that I got here. First off, one reason I think this is the year of the rye is that so many new distilleries are really coming of age and they are starting to release 4-year, 5-year, 6 years ryes. Also, the benefit of the ryes is the fact that ryes don't typically need as much aging to hit a really good point like bourbon does. So you do see some brands release 2-year, 3-year ryes. Well, it's because they can taste really, really good even at those young ages. But these brands don't have to rush things anymore. They can let these ryes get up to 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. And that changes the profile quite a bit. If you were to go back, let's say circa 2017, 2018, when maybe some people established their relationship with ryes and whether they liked ryes or not, nearly all of the ryes on the shelf just a handful of years ago would have been coming from Indiana. It would have been the exact same mash bill, 95.5, which means 95% rye, 5% malted rye, and that was it. So all these different brands would have rye whiskey, but essentially they would be the same. Now, some of the heritage legacy distillers dabbled in rye now and then, but they really didn't commit to it all that much in comparison to what MGP did. Nowadays, there are a lot of brands dabbling in ryes and some very impressive ryes at that. Middle West is one that sticks out to me with their pumpernickel rye. I'll pull up the label here so that you see it and know what I'm talking about. But they are out of Columbus, Ohio, making some impressive whiskeys. Got to accompany Mash and Journey on a barrel pick to Middle West, which just made me more and more impressed with the experience. Can't wait for that one to come out. Another one that we love personally is going to be the Hard Truth. Oh my gosh, do we love Hard Truth? This stuff tastes delicious just straight off the still. It's got all of these fruit flavors that just come off of it. It's crazy if you ever get to do a tour there. Also, a very beautiful campus in general. Live music, great food. But they're another brand that just came out. They leaned into rye whiskeys and they were started hitting home runs right away, making some of the best rye whiskey I've ever had. The other one that sticks out to me is Green River. Now it's just a shelfer for now, $30. I think it's one of the best shelfer ryes there is when it comes to Green River. Can't wait to try that at cask strength. Corbin Cash was one of my favorite whiskeys of last year with their Merced Rye. And then Bardstown is making great rye as well. I could go on and on and on, though, with all the brands that are making great ryes. I know I'm just highlighting five of them here, which isn't entirely fair to all the other brands that I didn't mention. There are so many good brands making rye whiskey. Thus, MGP doesn't corner the market anymore like they would have 5 years ago. That also means the overall profile of what a rye whiskey can be is totally different than some people's expectations if they haven't given rye whiskey a chance in a few years. Since it's also not dominated by MGP, it's also not dominated by that 95.5 mash bill that I was talking about earlier. Even MGP themselves has experimented with ryes that escape that mash bill, finding things that are, say, 51% rye, barely rye, got some corn in the mash bill. Lots of brands are now experimenting with the definition of a rye and experimenting with all the different combinations of mash bills that they can, but also using other types of rye, malted rye, chocolate rye, caramel rye. You have all of these different varietals going into these mash bills. You got New Riff just released one that was Balboa rye mixed with some heritage corn variety that they had. So more and more people are experimenting with rye, stretching that definition, stretching that flavor profile well beyond anything that may have come across at a certain point in time, maybe dill forward or mint forward, citrus forward. Rye category has totally blown up. The flavor wheel's blown up. So if you haven't tried rye whiskey in quite a while, once again, now's the time to do so. It offers a whole lot of variety that you may not be expecting if you only dabbled in ryes back in 2018, 2019. The other thing that I absolutely love that's happening with rye right now is that double digit or older ryes are hitting the market more often. In general, it seemed like getting anything beyond a 4 to 5 year rye was actually pretty rare. But now, especially in 2024, it seems like I'm getting my hands on older ryes all the time across all of these different brands. And I'll bring MGP back into the equation. I have been getting my hands on samples and bottles of 11-year MGP ryes. This one's OKI. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. The other one that's in my top 10 is Traverse City with a nearly 11-year rye. I know Cam over at Drums and Drams did some picks at River Roots, who apparently has some great barrels of 11-year ryes. A lot of old double-digit MGP ryes have hit the market, and man, they are good. And also, like right around like $120 price point, really good for what's in that bottle. Even Knob Creek getting in on it, releasing a standard release, a 10-year Knob Creek rye just recently. Other brands have been releasing higher age statements as well. New Riff just released an 8-year rye. Sagamore has an 8-year rye. There's just so many brands that have older ryes. Gosh, what's another brand? Driftless Glen. Their ryes are getting up there. So it's no longer kind of dabbling in these younger ryes. It makes me think of Peerless when Peerless was only releasing 2, 3 year ryes. Those days are over. All of these distilleries have really come of age, and that rye has been sitting down for a while. It's getting very, very exciting to try how these rye profiles are adapting to the longer time in the barrel. And then my last point here is, in addition to getting older and you got all these different mash bills going on, just like we saw in bourbon, people are experimenting with ryes and finishing ryes. The main example of a finished rye we had on the market for quite a while was essentially the Midwinter's Night Dram. That one is finished in port. And for the longest time, it seemed like High West was like the only one that was finishing ryes. Now there are finished ryes everywhere. I've seen a lot of places finishing ryes in Amburana. The ones that come to mind would be Rare Character and Starlight, just as some examples. I think a rye stands up to that brutal assault of the delicious Amburana more so than bourbons. I don't know if that's controversial or not. I know some people just hate the Amburana. I like it though, and I think it's very delicious on a rye. Also seeing more and more double-barreled ryes. And that's giving it a darker profile too, lending itself to that level of sweetness from that new char. Also see lots of sherry finishes, wine finishes in general, honey finishes, etc., etc., etc. Lots of variety when it comes to a rye whiskey. And because we have all of those different distillates, as mentioned off the top, it's not just MGP being finished over and over again with the same mash bill. It is all of these different mash bills, all of these different distilleries, all of these different combinations to explore. Hey, once again, why is 2024 the year of the rye? It is because rye has come of age and matured to the point where we can even experiment with it. So that is why I think 2024 is the year of the rye. There are just some amazing ryes that are sitting there on the shelf today, and a lot of them are somewhat being ignored. It seems harder to move a rye whiskey than it is a bourbon, despite how great a rye whiskey can be. So keep following us at the channel for more recommendations on ryes as they come out this year, and keep an eye on our top 10 lists for how many ryes ultimately make it in our final top 10, and then at the end of the year in our tournament brackets. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. If you have a question or comment, let me know in the comments here. I'll get to it with a video response similar than this. What are your favorite ryes of the year, and do you agree with 2024 being the year of the rye? Let us know in the comments. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. We'll catch you on the next Tuesday discussion. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hi.